we had discussed about the composition of the compulsory committees to be constituted in the organizations. Audit committee we had discussed, nomination and remuneration committee, then the stakeholders committee. So the compulsory committees and CSR committee. So these four committees we had already discussed. Today we will be starting with the rules and regulations related to meetings that are to be conducted by various committees. So for every committee, there are certain rules and regulations which they need to follow while convening the meetings. That how many meetings in a year they should convene, what should be the quorum of the meeting, what is the mode of communication of notice to the directors of the committee, how the proceedings are to be recorded, what should be the agenda of the meeting. So all these things, for all these things, there are certain rules and regulations which every organization and every committee has to follow. That we are going to discuss. The major rules we will be discussing related to the conduct of meetings. Yes, convening and conducting committee meetings. Convening means when the meeting, how the meetings are to be scheduled, how the meetings are to be planned, and conducting is how the meetings are to be actually conducted. It is not as per the wish or as per the requirement of the chairman of that committee or the independent directors of that committee, but all the committees have to follow certain rules and regulations which are laid down in the Companies Act 2013. These are also called as guidelines for the committee meetings, which every committee has to follow. So first is annual calendar. Now, annual calendar is a calendar which is to be prepared for the entire year. It is expected that before the start of the year, tentative dates are to be finalized by the committee, that what should be the tentative dates of meeting. That first meeting will be conducted in the month of January on this date, second meeting in the month of April on this date, third meeting in the month of August on this date, and last meeting in the month of November on this date or October on this date. So this type of calendar should be prepared for each and every committee. And in the calendar, tentative dates. Now these dates, as we are using the word tentative, they are not fixed. It is not that once the date is mentioned in the calendar, it has to be followed as it is. It may change. Depending upon the situation, the dates may change. The months may change. But in the beginning, the committee should be aware that we will be meeting at least thrice in a year, or four times in a year, or twice in a year. It cannot be less than that. It can be, but it can be more than that. Now, suppose if it is mentioned, as we have discussed in audit committee, that audit committee has to meet at least four times in a year. So every quarter they have to meet and discuss regarding the issues related to preparation of financial statements, or any issues which are raised by the auditors during the audit. That we had discussed while we were discussing audit committee. Now here it is compulsory for the audit committee to meet at least four times in a year, because it is the rule. But they can meet, say, if they feel that instead of four meetings, there should be six meetings of audit committee to ensure that all the transparency is maintained in the financial statements. So instead of four, they want to meet six times in a year. So that is acceptable by law. But if in the law it is mentioned that four times they have to meet, and they decide that instead of four times, we will meet only two times in a year or three times in a year, in that case, it is not acceptable. So in the annual calendar, it is expected that the number of meetings which is expected as per law is to be mentioned, or it can be more. If four meetings are there, four meetings should be planned in the annual calendar. They cannot plan two meetings or three meetings. That this year, as the company is having very less profit, so we will do one thing, that instead of four meetings, we will plan only for two meetings or three meetings. So this is not acceptable. So the number mentioned in the law has to be implemented as it is, but it can be more. That is acceptable. That four meetings were scheduled, but in the annual calendar, they have planned for six meetings, seven meetings, or maybe more meetings, because they feel that it takes time for the committee to go through all the financial, say, reports or financial statements. So four meetings are not sufficient for the committee. So instead of four, they are planning for five meetings, six meetings, or maybe seven meetings. So that is acceptable, but less is not acceptable. More is acceptable. So that is the meaning of annual calendar, that for every committee, the annual calendars are to be prepared by the respective committees. Next one, notice for the committee meeting. Now, the notice is to be prepared by the secretary, and that notice should be sent to all the committee members. And it is also mentioned that how many days prior to the meeting the notice is supposed to reach the place of the director. कितना दिन पहले नोटिस दिया जाना चाहिए मीटिंग के, that is also mentioned. It is not accepted that the meeting is scheduled on, say, 20th of January, and the director who will be or the committee member is being informed for that particular meeting on 18th or 19th of January. That is not acceptable. The rule says that at least 7 days prior to the conduct of meeting, the notice should be communicated to the respective committee member about the date and place of the meeting. That on so and so date and at so and so time, at so and so place, the meeting of the committee will take place. So this thing should be communicated to all the committee members at least 7 days before the conduct of the meeting. Now, in exceptional cases, every time this rule is to be followed, but in some exceptional case, say an emergency issue is raised or has arisen, and the meeting has to be convened very quickly. In that case, the meeting can be convened at a shorter notice also, but not always. In that case, the person, the committee member can be reached over phone, over email, and the intensity of that particular exceptional case or intensity of that particular issue is to be brought to the notice of that director or committee member, that because of this very important issue, we have planned that our committee will meet tomorrow itself. So in this exceptional circumstances only this can take place. Otherwise, at least 7 days notice should be given to the committee members before the conduct of the meeting. So only in case of exceptional circumstances or exceptional in exceptional cases, a immediate meeting can be organized or a emergency meeting can be conducted. Now, in this case also, the committee, suppose if 3 members are there, out of the 3 members, 2 members are independent director. Now, in this particular case, the quorum for the meeting will be at least one independent director should be present for the meeting. There cannot be an emergency meeting also if both the independent directors are not present and the meeting is conducted by 2 executive directors. So 2 independent directors were there and 2 executive directors were there. Now for emergency meeting, as the independent directors were from some other city, they were not able to reach the venue of the meeting on that particular day, because one day prior to meeting only they were communicated. So because of some reason they could not make to the venue for the meeting. In that case, it will be assumed that meeting conducted by both the executive director will be considered as a invalid meeting. The meeting will not be accepted. The meeting will not be valid, because the rule says that in emergency meetings also at least one independent director should be present. Suppose 2 independent directors were there or 3 independent directors were there, and out of 3 only one could make it to the meeting. So in that case, yes, meeting will be considered as valid meeting, but the committee has to prove that it was a exceptional meeting, exceptional case related meeting. Because of this very serious matter, we have called this emergency meeting. If the case, if the issue is valid, if the issue is genuine, then yes, the meeting will be accepted. Otherwise, the meeting will not be accepted. But even if the case is genuine, issue is very genuine, and none of the independent director is present for that particular emergency meeting, in that case also the meeting is not going to be considered as a valid meeting. It will be rejected. So that is related to notice of meeting. Now, how the notice is to be sent? It can be sent through post, it can be sent through by hand, it can be sent through email. So all these modes of communication can be used by the organization. Quorum, we have just discussed that what should be the quorum. Next one is attendance register. Now, while discussing the committees, we have also discussed then when a director is appointed on the board of directors, or when a director is appointed on a particular committee, at that time the rules and regulations of the committee and the role and responsibilities that are to be performed by that particular director is shared with that particular director. So at the time when we had discussed nomination and remuneration committee, when nomination committee finalizes or shortlists the director who can be included on the board of the company, at that moment the role and responsibility to be performed in case the director is included on the board is being shared in advance with the director. It is expected the director should go through the rules and roles and his roles and responsibilities, and when he signs those roles and responsibility, then only he can be included on the board of directors. Now in that role and responsibility, it is mentioned very clearly that the director has to remain present for all the board meetings, for all the committee meetings, if the person is included on one of the committee also. So board of director is meeting say 4 times in a year, so the director is supposed to be present for all the meetings. Next, the director is also included in the audit committee, and if audit committee is meeting say 6 times in a year, then it is expected that director should be remain present for that 6 meetings also in a year. So that is what is expected under the role and responsibility of director or committee member. Now he will be called as committee member. Now in this particular situation, it is expected that at least 75% attendance should be there of each and every director. For some emergency reason, yes, a person, suppose somebody is not from the family is not feeling well on the day of the meeting, to take care of that family member, the director absents himself from that particular meeting. As the reason is valid, it is absolutely acceptable. But it is said in the role and responsibility that at least 75% attendance should be there. If 4 meetings are there, at least he should remain present in 3 meetings. Now, in attendance register, all the committee members, they have to sign the attendance register on the day of meeting conducted. If the meeting is conducted on 2nd of March by say nomination and remuneration committee or CSR committee or any other committee, when they complete the meeting, they have to sign the register which is kept in the meeting room for that particular purpose. That agenda was this. These many directors are part of this meeting, this committee, and these many director out of total were present for the meeting. The name of the director is to be mentioned, designation of the director is to be mentioned, whether the person is chairman of the committee or member of the committee, that is to be mentioned. So designation of the committee member is to be mentioned, and signature of committee member. So committee members sign should be taken. Why this sign is to be taken? Because it is to ensure whether the director is present for more than 75% or not, whether his attendance is 75% or not. If the person is not present for more than 75%, then the committee will bring that to the notice of the board of directors, and board of directors are given the authority that they can remove this gentleman from the position of director from the board of the company. Because the most important thing is that you are included on the board because of your experience, because of expertise. You are included on the board, but you are remaining absent in the meetings. That means your expertise is not useful for the company. And if your expertise and experience is not used for the company, then what is the point of you to be included on the board of the company? So this is one of the major reason for removal of a director from the position of director from the board. Even if the person is appointed, say, for 5 years, and in the first year itself, if the person is remaining absent from most of the meeting without waiting for 5 years to complete, even if the person is one of the director on the board, even if the person is chairman, the person can be removed, because the most important thing is the interest of the organization. All the directors on the boards are included to protect and promote the interest of the organization. If the interest of the organization is not taken care, if the interest of the organization is ignored, then the person is not required to be there on the board of directors of the company. So that is why the attendance register is kept, to see to it, to check, to calculate how many meetings were attended by the directors of the committee, how many meetings were attended by the directors on the board of directors. बहुत होशियार आदमी है, बहुत इंटेलिजेंट है, और वर्ल्ड में उसकी एक्सपर्टीज को माना जाता है। ऐसे व्यक्ति को हर कंपनी चाहेगी कि वो उसके बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स में हो। पर ऐसा एक्सपर्ट जो वर्ल्ड रीनोन्ड है, अगर बोर्ड मीटिंग्स अटेंड ही नहीं कर रहा है, तो कंपनी को उसका फायदा नहीं है, कंपनी उसे निकाल सकती है, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाई द अटेंडेंस रजिस्टर इज केप्ट. So they have mentioned very clearly in detail how the attendance are to be maintained. So we will not go into that detail. Recording of proceedings of the committee. Now, whenever the meeting of the committee is convened, at that time, the minutes of meeting, first the agenda is prepared, and when the notice is shared with the committee members, the notice also includes the agenda for the meeting. So very simple logic or reason behind sending the agenda in the notice before 7 days or prior to 7 days prior to the conduct of meeting. The logic is that the directors or the committee members should come prepared for the meeting, that these are the agenda points. They should collect information related to those agenda points from the company, and they should go through clearly the information provided and on that particular basis they should then come to the meeting. Just give me a minute, I'll be back. Yes, sorry for that interruption. Yes, so yes, can you see my screen?
So,
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we were discussing about the agendas. Now the agenda is shared with the committee members in advance so that they can collect the information, they can go through the information carefully, and they can prepare on the basis of agenda points, and they can come prepared to the organization. So in that situation, it is possible. That healthy discussion is possible. Now, the next point we are going to discuss is recording proceedings of committee meetings. Now, those who are working, they are definitely aware of this term called as minutes of meeting. That whenever a meeting takes place, the highlights of the meeting or the important discussion points of the meeting or the important decisions that are being taken in the meeting, all these things are to be recorded. Now, why these things are expected to be recorded? The reason is very simple, because it will be clear to the board of the organization, board of the company, that the committee is functioning properly and they are discussing on the points which were included in the agenda. Now, this is to be recorded properly, and these records or these minutes of meetings are to be signed by the members of the committee and by the chairman of the committee. All the people, they should now, when the audit is conducted, please note that audit is not only for the financial aspects of the organization, but audit is also conducted for the other activities conducted in the organization. And it also includes administrative audit. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ फाइनेंस डिपार्टमेंट का ही ऑडिट होगा, सिर्फ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स जो बनाई जाएंगे कि कितना प्रॉफिट है, कितना लॉस है, कहाँ पे कितना खर्चा हुआ, कहाँ पे कितना पैसा बचा, सिर्फ इसका ही ऑडिट नहीं होता। ऑडिट दूसरे फंक्शंस का भी होता है। तो ऑडिट जो कमेटीज की मीटिंग्स होती हैं, जो कमेटीज के डिस्कशन होते हैं, जो कमेटीज के डिसीजंस होते हैं, उन सब का भी ऑडिट होता है। So that is one reason why it is expected that all the important points discussed are to be noted down properly. All the decisions taken in the meeting are to be recorded properly, so that while it will be helpful for the audit purpose, and it will also be helpful for the effective functioning of the committee. Now, suppose if CSR committee is there and the meeting of CSR committee is taking place. Now, it is expected that the committee should be suggesting the organization or the board of the organization that which CSR activities the organization can concentrate on, how much amount can be invested in the CSR activities, who will be responsible for monitoring the funds utilized for the CSR activity. So all these things are expected to be discussed by the CSR committee. Now, in this particular meetings, that when we are talking about that which all activities are shortlisted, that is the responsibility of the CSR committee. कि स्कूल बनाना चाहिए, रोड बनाना चाहिए, स्ट्रीट लाइट बनाने चाहिए, या फिर और कोई CSR एक्टिविटी करनी चाहिए, ये जो सजेशन देने का काम है, ये CSR कमेटी करेगी। नाउ डिस्कशन में अगर शॉर्टलिस्ट होती हैं 2 और 3 चीजें कि या तो फिर हम लोग ड्रेनेज प्रॉपर नहीं है वहां पर लोकेलिटी में आसपास जिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की, तो वहां पर हम लोग एक अच्छा ड्रेनेज का सिस्टम डेवलप कर सकते हैं। अगर वो शॉर्टलिस्ट किया गया है तो दैट शुड बी रिकॉर्डेड समवेयर that in the discussion these points were taken up for the discussion, and unanimously it was decided by the committee that the organization should concentrate on investing funds in creating a or in starting in developing a drainage facility for the particular locality. Now, why they have shortlisted this particular field or this particular activity, that reason should also be discussed, and that reason should also be noted down. So when their report will be put to the forwarded to the board committee. At that time, while going through the minutes of meeting, they will very easily find out that the committee, the CSR has come, committee has suggested us this activity. Now, why they have suggested this activity? They have mentioned there. If they have mentioned in the record book, the board members can very easily read those points and they will come to know why it has been shortlisted by the CSR committee. So these are the points that recordings of the proceedings are to be maintained, and as per rule also, it is it is section 118 and rule 25 of companies management and administration rules 24 2014 requires maintenance of minutes of meeting of each committee of the board in a distinct minute book. Distinct minute book means अलग अलग records होने चाहिए. CSR कमेटी की record book अलग रहेगी, ऑडिट कमेटी की record book अलग रहेगी, देन नॉमिनेशन एंड रेम्यूनरेशन की ऑडिट बुक अलग रहेगी, स्टेक होल्डर्स रिलेशनशिप कमेटी की रिकॉर्ड बुक अलग अलग रहेगी. So in detail they have mentioned that date should be mentioned, time should be mentioned, number of directors who were present should be mentioned. So all the details should be mentioned, and then these were the point on which the decisions were taken. What decisions were taken, that is again to be mentioned, and after writing everything in detail, recording everything in detail, it is to be verified, it is to be sanctioned, it is to be checked, and it is to be signed by the committee members as well as the chairman of the committee. So that is how the recording of proceedings of various committee meetings are to be maintained. Yes, now this meeting through video conferencing. So far, the meetings which we have discussed are to be conducted in, say, a physical, with physical presence. So in the Companies Act 2013, as well as the rules regarding the performance of companies, or rules regarding these committees, which were released in the 2014 amendment to the Companies Act 2013. In that, it is mentioned clearly that if a director is unable to join the meeting physically, and that moment there should be an option of joining the meeting through video conferencing. So that clause was included, and that is called as meeting through video conferencing. But now we all are aware that for the last 2 years, as most of the companies, if not all of the companies, most of the companies, as they are, or their employees are working from home, so their minutes of meeting or their board meetings or their committee meetings, they are also being conducted in online mode. So even if the meeting is conducted through online mode, it is expected that the record should be maintained not only in the online mode, but it has to be approved in offline mode also. तो उसकी सॉफ्ट कॉपी तो होनी ही चाहिए, सॉफ्ट कॉपी के साथ साथ हार्ड कॉपी भी सिग्नेचर स्टैम्प साइंड होने ही चाहिए. So that is related to the meetings through video conferencing. Next one is sitting fees. Sitting fees, we had discussed the point sitting fees when we were discussing the guidelines of Infosys, corporate governance guidelines of Infosys and Wipro, they have mentioned that how much sitting fees. Sitting fees means the director being given a fixed amount or amount of fees for attending a particular meeting. So that is to be decided by the remuneration and nomination and remuneration committee. So sitting fees is a fees which shall be paid to the committee member for being present for a particular meeting. Suppose a director is there in the audit committee and it is mentioned that when the director will be coming for the meeting, at the end of the meeting the director will be given, that committee member will be given, say 10,000 rupees as his remuneration for attending that meeting. So that should be shared with this particular person, that is called as sitting fees. Performance evaluation, that also we had discussed, that it is not that once a director is included on the committee, on any of the committee or on the board of directors, every time, every year, the performance evaluation of all the directors is also done by nomination and remuneration committee. Their remuneration are fixed on the basis of their performance evaluation. So again, all the performance criteria are to be communicated to the directors in advance. Their performance evaluation parameters should be known to them, and on the basis of those parameters their performance is to be evaluated every year, and it should be communicated to the directors, respective directors also. Their package, their remuneration, their salary depends upon their performance. If they are not performing well, their remuneration can be decreased. It can be say deducted from their actual remuneration, or if continuously they are not performing, they can be removed from the directorship also. So that is related to performance evaluation. So this was regarding the minutes of meeting, or how the committee meetings are to be convened. In the next session, we will discuss about the board charter, that what is the meaning of board charter. So we will take up for discussion the next concept, which is called as board charter. So please come prepared for board charter so that it will be better for discussion. So thank you everyone for being present in today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.